Maybe you're like me and you grew up thinking that the only way through something was to bash your head through a brick wall, to fight, to like push, to drive hard. It's so woven into the fabric of masculine narrative that I think it's worth looking at it with at least a little bit more context. So much of what I've done in my life as a man, I've achieved because I've gritted my teeth and just busted through the obstacle. And I think there's a lot of value in that. In fact, I bring a lot of that work into the leadership trainings and events that we run here in Rising Man. Because one thing I know for sure is that men, we will sell ourselves out. I will sell myself short. I won't tap into that full 110% that I have because there's a function in me that wants to just hold a little bit back. There's fears, there's ego, there's a survival brain that tells me that I shouldn't do something, that I shouldn't take that risk, that I should keep myself protected and safe. Now, that is a time in which it's valuable for me to override my nervous system and push through. And this is very circumstantial and contextual. So all of you out there, take that into consideration, right? All I'm asking you to do is think about those moments where maybe you do need to push through. Maybe you need to override some of those voices in your head and just go for it. Take that risk. Push yourself a little bit harder. Wake up a little bit earlier. Run a little bit farther. Ask the question that you haven't been willing to ask, right? There's a time and a place for us to push the envelope, to push myself and drive myself where I would ordinarily hold back. So I don't want to discredit that. That's a really important part of growth, especially for us as men. But on the other side of things, I think it's also really important to learn when to take care of myself, when to listen to what my nervous system is telling me. Those messages that say, hey, you're running a little hot right now. You need to take care of yourself. Instead of pushing another 4 hours of work or late nights, long days on an unending basis, sometimes I need to listen and say, you know what I really need? I need a day off. You know what I really need? I need to go for a walk in the park. I need to just take my shoes off and plant them on the earth. Do something soothing for my nervous system instead of overriding and driving through it. And this is a balance that there's not a clear yes or no, right or wrong. This is just an invitation to consider that the answer does not always have to be push harder, go faster, lift more, take on more. Because if any of you have ever experienced burnout or overwhelm the way I have, it's always a function of the first version of growth I talked about. Always pushing, always looking to take on more, always telling myself, I could do better, I could do better, I could do better. I can handle more, until I can't. We talk about being overcommitted, right? A lot of us who get into states of overwhelm or burnout, we say, oh, I'm overcommitted. No, I'm just not committed to anything when I get to that place because I'm not following through on it. Those are the consequences of always pushing the nervous system to go, go, go. And I don't know about the rest of you guys out there, but I'm not the only one who suffers by having a burnt out nervous system. My wife suffers by the way I show up when I'm burnt out and overwhelmed. My children don't get the same amount of presence from me. The people around me don't get the best version of me. So there's also a time and a place to soothe the nervous system, to listen, to lie flat on the ground, to take deep breaths, to regulate and quiet down, to get back to a baseline state of relaxation, of poise, of clarity. So I wanted to offer this distinction because I know that there's a lot of messages out there that say push through it, just drive through it. And now more than ever, I think it's important for us men to remember, hey, my body is wired to function a certain way. I have an autonomic and a parasympathetic nervous system, and both of them need to be equally balanced and taken care of. That autonomic version that houses all of our fight or flight responses, that's ready for when it's time to go into battle, right? Sometimes we need to engage that nervous system to survive, to get through, to grow, to proceed. But other times we need to tap into that parasympathetic, that rest and digest and relax part of our nervous system, the one that does the reparative and restorative processes. Because if I'm always pushing and I'm always driving and I'm always tapping into that fight response that I have in my body, then I'm also missing out on those opportunities for my body to repair, to recharge, to restore, to regenerate. And the worst case scenario by pushing and pushing and pushing all the time is that even if I do get to where I wanted to go, there's hardly anything of me left. I might be broken, burnt out, overwhelmed, a shell of who I was, and I just dragged myself through the mud in order to get here. And now I've arrived, but I can barely stand on my own 2 feet. Or now I've arrived, but I'm so traumatized in my nervous system that I don't feel good here. I don't feel safe here. So it's just an opportunity and invitation to consider the cost and consider which end of the spectrum do you tend to lean on. Because some of us also never take any risks. We never fight. We always just revert back to the story of resting and recharging. That's a whole nother conversation. But for those of us who tend to push, who tend to override what our nervous system is telling us, that is inviting us to just slow down, take a breath, to pause, consider bringing some balance to it. And all it takes is some breath, closing the eyes, just breathing deeply a few times, putting your hands on the earth, watching a sunset. These are all very simple, very available regulatory mechanisms that'll make the nervous system feel better and create the circumstances for clarity to come back in. So I hope that message hits you. Make sure that you tap into which response you're leaning into more and give yourself a chance to test out the other one. And then make sure you come back also for another Monday morning meditation next week. Peace.